Nefertiti, how are you, my friend? Oh, he's right here. Wow, this is amazing. Oh my God. Hello, my friend. Oh, I'm so happy you're doing this. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Wow.
Marble!
I love you, buddy.
Marble!
Marble. Marble. You're saying marble. Thank you, my friend.
Yes!
Oh, man. Wow. Oh, thank you, my friend.
Mike!
Okay. Hey, folks. For those that will hear this and in the future and those that did join us, hey, I am with I consider a very special person, a very special guest. I've been following this gentleman for at least, gosh, it's got to be 8 years. But he's been around a lot longer than that. Mike Patterson, Sasquatch, Ontario. And just to get this going here. So he's got a YouTube channel. He's also got a website, and we'll talk about that as well. But I strongly recommend those, especially who truly want to know or have a greater understanding of what's going on when it comes to what we call Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Kitchisabe, whatever. There's the people of the forest. It should be a very interesting conversation. Mike, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a privilege, man. And it sounds like we have a lot in common, and it's interesting how synchronicity works. My friend, hey David, how's it going? David House is in the house. You guys will slowly crawl in here. Good to see you. He's an experiencer as well. He's has plenty of experiences down south. Yeah, where was I at with all this when I got distracted? So Sasquatch Ontario, Mike has been a very influential person, I believe, in this topic, and a very controversial one. And I have to go back to synchronicity. My friend Jared from Sasquatch Confessionals, I was just hanging out with them. Next thing you know, Mike Patterson's there, Sasquatch Ontario, the legend, and he asked him if he'd join me, and that was last week, and here I am talking to him. That's synchronicity in my book. So I'm looking forward to this. Where were you, Dad? Where was I? I was right here on the phone. By the way, my son is the wingman tonight. So with that, Mike, would you be willing to just go, brief for those who could possibly not who you are, a little bit about who you are? Would you share that?
As far as the subject goes, and that it was the last thing on my mind when this came into my life. So if you go back to 2007, well, first of all, I'll just say, like, I didn't stay in school. I didn't like the indoctrination. I dropped out of school, so I don't have the formal education, but it really is not necessarily synonymous with intelligence.
No,
as
it's actually it turns out to be a blessing, Mike.
yeah.
I'm serious. I went to college and university, and my degree is in environmental science and management, and a lot of my learning ended up. No, I'm serious. It was a blessing. So
Yeah, you kind of got to unlearn to relearn, right?
that's all I spent for the past decade and a half since he's been born is unlearning everything.
So, yeah, I basically back in 2007, I was going into the woods. I bought some good camera gear, and I love nature. So I was going on my time off from working at the time. Um, that's the other thing. I didn't do the career thing, right? Basically a layman. I did a lot of work in stone and that sort of thing. Got tired of that industry. And, you know, operating CNC, running, working with granite, marble, that sort of thing for a long time. But aside from that, my time off, I started going into the woods with a camera. And my relationship at that time, way back, was she was working every weekend. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going into the woods, taking my camera gear, and um, my thing that I like doing was trying to get as close as I can to any wildlife.
Yeah.
I crawl on my hands and knees if I have to, and I've done that. And so I was doing that, and just searching for photo opportunities, always looking for that National Geographic photo op, right? And I had some good gear, so I managed to get some pretty good looking photos over the years. And I think I was being watched. So at one point, I basically had an epiphany, and to start looking for Sasquatch. I don't know where that came from, but I highly suspect that they had something to do with it, especially now that I've had so much experience with it. And I started looking into it. I remember the very, very first time I went out was out. I was working for an employer at the time who was an import company. I was just doing deliveries and stuff, deliveries like to high-end restaurants and that sort of thing. And they had a cottage up on this lake up in the Bon Echo region of the northeast Ontario, very forested provincial park type of area. And they had a cottage on this lake, and they told me, well, the far side of the lake was nothing. It was just wilderness. And it's one of the cleanest lakes in Ontario. And they had told me about a camp spot, basically, where snowmobilers, would camp throughout the winter. And so I went there with a good friend of mine, and it was about 8 o'clock the next morning. We heard what pretty confident was a Sasquatch screaming. Sounded maybe it was a mile away or so. I don't know. It was pretty distant, but it was loud enough to make it out. I remember when I got home, I searched YouTube, and I actually found a video of some campers. They were breaking down their camp. They were done, packing it in, and it got the same sound, the same screams, and it was going on and on. I was like, wow, that's it, man. That's the same thing I heard. So that was the very first time. And then fast forward a bit to 2008, I'd been in talks with, I'd made a couple comments on some YouTube videos, and somebody reached out to me. So they saw where I was located, general location, and they asked me, said, hey, you want to go to a spot, previous activity? And when I first started this, I thought one had to go to the West Coast for any possible chance encounter. I've learned much different since then.
Yeah.
And I ended up meeting this guy after talking for a bit, just kind of let it go for a bit. And then he contacts me. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was a month later or so. And he says, well, you want to do this? I said, okay, let's do it this weekend. And that was October 25th, 2008. So pulled up Google Earth and showed me where I was going to meet him in this parking lot of this forested, basically protected area. And it was a couple, I think about 220 hectares. This one tract. There's a bunch of them, in the general vicinity, cut up by roads and stuff, right? And so, okay, and I was extremely skeptical because of where this location was. I don't want to say, but the last place I'd ever think of encountering a Sasquatch. I was like, no. So we're walking around. We met at noon, and we're walking around. It was a very drizzly, gray day in October, and he was doing some wood knocking, that sort of thing, just kind of showing me the ropes. He didn't know the extent of what these were. He'd grown up at a place up north called Lost Channel, I think he said it was, and him and his brother apparently had several run-ins over the years with Sasquatch on their property. So he was basically showing me the ropes, and I ended up. Well, it was 4:30 in the afternoon, roughly, when he had picked up a fist-sized rock, and he walked up to a big pine tree, and he smacked it a few times, 3 or 4 times, something like that, and dropped the rock, and suddenly I hear this like chest thump, gorilla, coconut hollow, tone, just a strange sound that my time spent in the forest, I'd never heard this before, right? It immediately got my hair standing up, pretty much, like, what the hell is this? Something's really weird here. And I put my arm up to, be quiet and just listen for a sec. And we did. And it was only a few seconds later, suddenly these giant, just massive whoops, 3 of them, like a whoop, whoop, and brief pause, and then another one. It was so loud, so guttural and raspy. And I remember thinking at the time, that thing, it sounded like it could speak English. It was so pronounced, but it filled the forest. It was just absolutely incredible. Didn't see anything, but I knew instantly what it was. It was just 100% no brainer. Holy shit, they're real. And we sat down just for a couple minutes or so, and we were right by this trail, this cross trail. And while we're sitting there, right after it happened, this lady, because this area is bordered by homes, so this lady, people walk their dogs and do horseback through this on the trails through this region. This lady come walking around the corner with her dog right after it happened. She was even closer than we were, so didn't talk to her. We just kind of nodded, said hi, and she had this scowl on her face. I can just imagine, what the hell was going through her mind, because it changed my life. So, must have had some effect on her, right? But we were looking for it, and they gave it to us. So that was the second time. So that's 2 times now, 2 in a row, I've had experiences. I went back the next week, and I went to another patch of, another section just down the road from there, a couple miles up the road. And I remember I was by myself this time. I had my camera, video camera, binoculars, all that stuff. And oh yeah, just backtrack a bit. So after that happened, nothing else happened, and we ended up leaving, right? But so fast forward to that next week, and I went back in, but just down the road there, and I heard the exact same triple chest thump tone that I heard the week before, right there beside me. It was right there, right at the side of the trail. There was a stand of spruce or something, and I didn't realize at the time, they had abilities. I had no idea, right? Again, no visual, but I heard that exact. It was exact same. It was like, what, So I knew they were right there, and that's when I had my first experience of high strangeness. I'm not halfway home, but I'm in my vehicle driving, not knowing how I got there. They made me leave. There was no fear. They just made me leave. I just, went to my car, got in, and left, and kind of shook my head. What the hell am I doing? How did I get here? Yeah. So that's basically how it all started.
And since then, you say you've had like well over 1,000 encounters.
Yeah, it's got to be easily.
So yeah, I know when the first time that, well, the first time I saw one was 2017. My first encounter that same summer. That certainly did change my life, especially when I got 15 feet in front of my mug. I was standing next to a Crow Indian medicine man. My story's pretty wild, man. Definitely is wild, and but yours is too. So, and you kind of got to this point. I mean, when did you finally realize that that the of course you and I talked a little bit, so you understand a little bit of what's going on, quite more than most actually, what's going on in the world, and so I'm sure you understand about the Hegelian dialectic, creating two sides, right? The left-right paradigm, right? The flesh and blood or the woo thing, right? But it seems
Yeah.
to me that you've realized at some point you realize that it's much more deeper than that. And you talk about interdimensional beings and all that. At what point did you, from when you finally came to terms with that, and you said, yes, there's something deeper going on than what the experts are telling us?
Well, I didn't. I, I had an experience in that same area where I just described the second incident there. We were in that same area, and I was with the guy who basically I visited different locations for about, I think it was 5 years with him, and we had one night that we were in there. It was I don't think I was working at the time, and it was during the week. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, really late, really lit, um, brightly moonlit night, and there was snow on the ground. Didn't need a flashlight; it was so bright, but had them anyways. And so we're walking down this main trail, and there's these tracks that were crossing the trail, fresh snow, and the so I was sitting there trying to figure this out. Is this from a deer jumping, right? Hopping through the snow, checking out the tracks, and suddenly, and I remember at the time my dad had given me his old, what was it, uh, 8 millimeter video camera, whatever it was, tape, right? And I was running that camera when we heard bipedal footsteps crunching through the snow right there, right beside us. I was freaking out because I couldn't understand it. I was shocked. It was like, what the hell? There's nothing here. There's something clearly walking through the snow. Crunch, 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 and I had it on film, but I was in such denial. I taped over it. I'm quite sure I did. I really haven't gone over those tapes and since, but I didn't know it back then. But they were showing me their abilities way back. I had no idea. I didn't know what was going on. I wouldn't know till years later, be able to put that together, right? Um, but this thing with two camps, the ape camp, the woo camp, I hate that word.
It's
The, the
very disrespectful, isn't it? It's very derogative.
Yeah, they're both. They are flesh and blood, but they're masters of energy. They have mastered Earth's energy. They are so connected to the Earth, unlike anything else we know. To the point of, well, from what the native culture says, they're shapeshifters, right? I haven't had that shown to me so much yet, but I have had moments where I've seen some crazy stuff. But one time I'm sitting in a chair. Dwayne, property owner Dwayne, he's sitting beside me, and we got the forest right in front of us. We're sitting on the gravel in his driveway. Basically, the forest is right there, and suddenly, and it's dark. Suddenly, I see this smoke, this wispy kind of smoke, like right here, just a few inches from my eyes, and it was dark, but I could still see this. And suddenly, my face got covered by a hairy hand, I hope. and covered my nose and my mouth, like just very firm but soft, very soft hair. By then I was comfortable. I didn't react. And then I told Dwayne what just happened, and I explained that smoke, like darker than dark. That's what I said to him, because it was dark outside, but I could still see it, right? And then seconds later, it happened to him. He got the same thing. I remember he had his mouth open, so he got caught with his mouth open, mouthful of hair. So that whole smoky thing, it's almost like, what can that morph into, right? So I do lean towards that belief that they are shapeshifters, but can they take the form of other animals, or do they just enter an animal and take it over, that sort of thing? So that I would lean more towards that they would take over something instead of morphing into it. So that's just my belief, though. Right?
Well, I have filmed. It's actually, you can see on my both channels that I have left. One, it looks like something they call a dog man shift and change into a Bigfoot. You see the video of that. And then I have personally seen these things come out of the trees and go through trees, not go
Yeah,
around.
I can believe that.
So as part of some of my encounters. So, and this is not something I discover later after the fact that it's part of like an Ojibwe lore, right? Coming out of the trees. So, and there seems to be a strong connection with trees and what we call Sasquatch. And I just had an interesting interview with a guy. He goes by the Orb Whisperer. He's from Australia. And he demonstrates how he has the ability to manipulate or control these orbs that are out there. I know that you have filmed orbs along with Bigfoot. So, by the way, don't worry about it. When it comes to here, we go all the way. we're like, this is a group that's like, we're far beyond the debate of flesh and blood and all that. We're thinking
I don't hold back. I don't care what anybody thinks. I just
this is, yeah, there's no point in it, right?
yeah
Why lie about it? What good is it going to do? So
yeah.
it's not going to help anybody.
There's a lot of a lot of people that are afraid to speak out involved in this. They're afraid of losing face. All these supposed experts or these organizations. The Olympic Project or the BFRO they all just play this game of they won't step over that line. With the
What if they are part of the government's?
disinformation.
Yes. You see, the reason I got involved with the whole idea of Bigfoot was because I was out to prove that it was a government psyop, right? And I told you a little bit about how I became really disenchanted with Christianity, and I was part of the Flat Earth movement back at the time, and I was part of the Truther movement, and I was like, I need a break from all this. What's the most sacrilege topic to delve into in the truther community? Well, that happens to be Bigfoot, okay? Because everybody thinks it's a joke, right? So being the researcher that I am and not afraid to reach out to people, next thing you know, I'm doing shows with MK Davis, right? 6 months into it, I'm ended up having encounters, not just and so I have come to I know that these things are real. Now, just the thing is to fully understand what they are. I think that's why you're here. And I want to talk to you about some deeper stuff too, because there's the whole saying of the dark night of the soul, right? This shamanistic ritual, you probably know about it. And this is and you, whether intentionally did it or not, when you were out there in the woods by yourself in that tent and having these interactions, you were in some way, some form, having a form of it in our own way. And I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but I want to talk to you about this because I feel that's part of my next part of my journey is to have that moment. You know what I mean? Because I've had these, I've had extremely negative experiences, and I've also had some very confusing experiences. I do believe that first time with that Crow Indian medicine man, that Sasquatch that crawled up that ravine was actually saving my butt from the guy next to me. Ironically, I wasn't afraid of the quote unquote Bigfoot or Sasquatch. I was more. I was. This is a long story. This one day we'll talk about it if you want, because it was prophetic and it happened within a 24-hour period. Next thing you know, I'm standing next to a guy that I never even knew before, right? But in the end, as we were leaving, because I didn't feel any dread or fear towards this thing called Bigfoot, right? And I'm sorry if that bothers you, me saying this thing called Bigfoot or something, because I don't know exactly what to call them. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, because it's your experience with the entities or the beings, Sasquatch in your area. I don't think they're the same things down here. They're a little different. They're kind of the same, but they're not the same. But they've been going to that. But regardless, on the way back, this guy who turns out to be a practitioner of the dark arts is bragging about human sacrifice and been involved in that's right, and a 15-year-old girl and a group of guys down in Mansfield and all. And I'm like, and actually it was Jared in the recorded conversation that we had on his show that it made me start thinking that, and I never realized it until years later that probably that Sabe actually saved my butt. Not, and in the video it talks about bad people or evil people, or whatever, with the black helicopter, right? And I think that, and I'm starting to realize that thing actually saved my butt from something even worse. That makes sense. And
Wouldn't
so,
surprise me. Yeah.
and you have these personal experience, and you seem to have a much more positive experience with these things. Going back to the dark night of the soul and this whole thing. Do you understand what I'm getting at because when I say that with your experience? Does that even make sense? And I can talk a little more detail about the shamanic ritual of it, but if you want. So I don't.
Like when I went into that, there was a lot of fear, right? When I first got involved, I was all gung ho. I was going to that spot where those first couple encounters happened, and I was going there every weekend. Mostly at first with the one guy, but I started going by myself, and I'm all gung ho, and I get there late at night, park my car, get out, start to walk in, and I chicken out, and I sit there in the parking lot staring at the woods, right? As I was too afraid to walk in there by myself, and there was a lot of that. I had a lot of fear going into the dark woods alone, and then when the situation with came up, to investigate Dwayne's property, purported activity going on there. I knew from the first night. I think, like I said to you before this started, that I think I was being trained because I was in that other area. They gave me about 4 years or so, and I'd had numerous experiences in that location and other locations over the years, which gave me a bit of understanding of how Sasquatch approach and how they present themselves. And so I had my schooling, and then when the situation with Dwayne came along, I actually had a knowing when I first got that information. I knew this was what I was looking for, and sure enough, like wow, just mind blowing. But when I first went into that, again, like I said, there's a lot of fear. But when you are looking for it, and then you're presented with an opportunity, a golden opportunity of a lifetime,
What's up?
what do?
You're back.
You either dive in head first, or or what else? What else are you going to do? You either do that or you pack it in, go home. That's it. But so I dove in head first. For me, it was do or die. I literally, that was my mentality: do or die. My biggest fear was being in my tent and a tree or a big ass boulder being dropped on me. That's what my fear was.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. It wasn't them. It wasn't them. It was, them pushing a tree over on me or something.
That's interesting that's how you saw that. Everyone's Hey, Teresa, how's it going? Hey, Mike, lady, I call you off live. Yeah, same here. Uh, you know, it's interesting. That's how you visualize it or perceive it. Now, for me, my fear is because I've seen these things, and I've been up close to them, right to my mug. I've seen the face and all that. I've had a lot of there's other things that are associated with what we call Sasquatch as well. There's spiritual side of it, and I'm just like, okay, but something's telling me that I have to face this fear. That there's a reason why I'm going through this, and it's not just because I opened a door to it, but because there's a purpose for it. It's almost like there are certain that are chosen to go through ignorantly and unknowingly a kind of shamanic ritual of coming face to face with not only our fears, but something greater and deeper that's around us, right? The greater world, right? And that we used to be something that was quite it was common practice just about in all indigenous tribal settings that the young men and then say about age 12, right, were supposed to go to a certain place and be alone for some, it's usually something around 3 or 4 days without water and food and with nothing more than the clothes on their back and face whatever was out there, right? The unknown. You did that. I am so impressed with that because it's and people say, what's the big deal? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if we are all honest about this, 1 out of 1,000 people probably has ever camped. I'm alone out in the woods, right? Or in the forest. Probably that's the number today. Used to be the complete opposite. Today, it's this extreme rarity. It's extreme rarity. And now let's imagine that. Now, what Mike did, that's like probably 1 in 10,000 people have ever been willing to do this. And I think this is a very important lesson. And this is something deeper that we need to deal with. And it's not just, about scary stories and all that. There's something about facing our fears and that these things seem to be part of that. Mike, we live in this kind of dualistic system, right? There's night and day, there's good and evil, there's darkness and light. And they seem to have that's kind of their realm, if you will, the darkness, right? And the realm and the force that's beyond us and our controlled, manipulated settings called cities and towns and our homes and all that. So for you to go there, I have immense amount of respect for you doing that. Now, would you be willing to talk more about that? I know it sounds. Listen, you've already told your story, a lot of your encounters and that kind of stuff. How many times? Let's go deeper in this. You know what I mean? Let's go deeper in this, right? Um, what what was it like? What was the preparation, and what was the experience, and what? I think we talked a little bit about what drove you, but talk some more about this, and then what it was like being because it's I've talked to guys who've been in the battlefield and experienced war and who have also had encounters. And they said that, and when they experience pure dread and fear, right? Some of these encounters have, they said there's no comparison. None. So am I making myself clear in my request or is it?
Um, the first time that I slept in my tent, the other guy was there at the beginning. The guy that I was with for about 5 years, he was there at the beginning. So he had fear. So I had set my tent up. There's an incline there, goes up, I don't know, maybe the 150 feet, and then it levels off on Dwayne's property. His cottage is on one side of the road, and then his property continues on the other. So there's this steep incline. I go up top there, and I set my tent up, where it leveled out. And I remember that first night, I had fear, and the other guy's name's Mike too. I had him walk up with me to my tent until I was ready, and getting, all together, right? I had fear. I didn't want to go alone, right? So he walked up,
It's
and then
reasonable. It's very reasonable, by the way. It's nothing to feel
and
bad
then
about.
yeah, I had set up audio right outside my tent. He had so I did all that, and then when I set up my audio, getting into my tent, and then he went back down the hill, and I could hear him going down, and then I heard him get into his car, and he started it up to fire up the heat, get some heat because it was a bit chilly, and while his car was running, I got a whole bunch of weird stuff happened. And first there was a big tree limb break, just crack. It was a big tree limb. It was right there in front of my tent, and my mind was just spinning. Um, on the audio, that tree limb should have hit the ground if it just broke naturally. It should have thumped and made a huge sound on the audio, right?
Right.
It didn't. It didn't make any sound, so it was placed down quietly with a hand. And I know the other mic is in his car, so there's nobody there. It's just me. And then suddenly I start getting this weird chattering, almost kind of like a fox chatter type sound, but just bizarre outside my tent wall. And my heart started pounding. It's like, what the hell's going on? And then that stopped. And then seconds later, um, it was a like a perfect barred owl call right outside my tent wall. And all this is going on. My heart is just pounding. I thought I was going to have a heart attack because I didn't know what the hell all this was, right? So I was like, I've had a couple of moments where I had to calm my heart down for fear of having a heart attack. That's how hard it was pounding. Like I'm thinking, whatever's outside that tent can hear my heart. No problem, man. I'm just focusing on it, trying to calm it down because it feels like it's going to burst out of my chest. That's how much fear I had. But so the next morning after that, I actually found some fresh feces from one of the young ones. So I think one of the young ones was basically testing me, or seeing what I'm made of, and screamed outside my tent wall. It was a barred owl call, but it just the way it all happened with the other weird fox like call, and it was all right there, and it was all right outside my tent wall. I didn't know what to think. This is bizarre, right? So, but anyway, I kind of lost track of what the whole question was about. So
No, it's just about this. It's a form of so our modern version of the shamanic quest of the dark night of the soul and facing your fears. And you're in the tent, your heart is racing. You get it, and just I just want to know what it was like, honestly, and what was really going on, because of I think it's, how do I say this? I think I perceive that the way things are going as far as in the community is that it's getting manipulated and driven into the wrong direction. And
the
I do
sub
believe,
the
and
subject.
uh, well, I think we know what you were doing. I believe you're going down. I believe you've been going down the right path of the journey, right? What I'm saying is that for those who want to have a greater understanding of what we're dealing with, spending all your time listening to scary stories and listen to all the experts and being part of this group is not going to be the answer.
No.
You got to be willing to do what you did. This is as
Yeah,
our ancestors did.
there's so
Or
many there's so many people that are screaming for proof. It's like the only way you're going to get it is if you get off your ass and you get in those woods and make it happen for yourself. And there's a damn good chance it will happen too.
so in order for so then the thing is how to help others, including myself, because I know it's part of my rite of passage. Even at age 55, I'm still going to have to do this. I'm so impressed that there were 12-year-olds that did this. You know what I mean? And it was just part of their culture, though. So they were prepared for it, right? They prepared for this moment. And I'm trying to say is that for others, if you want to have a better understanding of what's going on, you're going to have to prepare for the moment. And if you think that running around with cameras and a group of guys and, performing on TikTok or on YouTube or whatever is going to be the answer, I don't think so. I think we're going to have to get more. I think we have to get more spiritual about this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so whether or not that was your intent at the time, and whether you were even thinking about the spiritual side of it, in a way you were doing it knowingly or unknowingly, you were going through the ritual.
I just went in with an open mind. I didn't have any like when I initially got involved, my goal was the photograph of a lifetime. That's what, at the very beginning, with my camera going into nature, all that stuff. And it was like, hey, if I can get a picture of Sasquatch, man, it'd be amazing. That changed over the years. Um, I know, I know what Neff looks like and what his face looks like at this point. They don't want their picture taken. If you're going to get in a situation that I'm involved in, you're lucky to get a visual. It's rare. Although we get bits and pieces, little glimpses here and there. There is so much activity that happens indoors. It's insane. It's like we'll put our boots or shoes on to go outside to entice activity, and then suddenly they're showing their presence as we're going out the door, and they're inside and we're going outside. That's happened so many times. It's pretty funny. But yeah, the whole spiritual aspect of this, I'm still recording. I've recorded audio every visit, and I don't know, it's just something that I really don't want to stop doing, because I love listening back and hearing those moments that I missed. There are so many moments that I do not hear, and they're right there with me. They're present and they show it. It could be a little voice that's beside me, or a cough or a grunt, and I don't hear it. My foot might scuff, or I'm doing something, making noise, and I don't hear it, but they know I'm recording and they'll let me hear it, and they know I'm going to listen back and I'll catch it. But this is why I love recording audio, right? And it's just something that I've always done. And as far as bringing other equipment, I'm not ever trying to capture them on video. I'll take video, I'll take a bit of video of the woods and that. If they want to show themselves, hey, right on. Sometimes they have imposed short little video clips, like I've gotten 2-4 second clips, whatever, something really hairy showing on the camera, really close, or they have the ability to manipulate all of our electronics. So I've gotten a lot of images from them that they've imposed on both camera and video. So I'm never trying to trick them. At the beginning, I was, we were hiding stuff. I was putting up trail cams at the beginning. I was hiding the audio recorder, and they would show every time. Oh, we know it's there. We know it's there every time. Tapping the microphone or breaking a stick beside it. And you're trying to hide. Okay, they watching. They know. They're standing right there beside you, watching where you're putting everything. Right. So I evolved with the situation, and as I saw the intelligence I was dealing with, I just I just grew more respect for them, and just allowed it to unfold, and as it has, and I just kind of rolled with the punches, right? And at this point, I know they're highly telepathic, mind speak ability. I've learned so much. They create smells, turn them off and on like a light switch. I think they do the same with sounds, and well, they do. And like, I learned so much. Now it's at a level of asking questions, right, where I'm getting written responses from them, and learning things about that show me that they seem to know our true history. It seems that they know ahead on our timeline what's coming, and they know what goes on behind closed doors. So there are no secrets. So all this bullshit going on with all the dark stuff, all the manipulation, and just what the bad humans are doing to us. They know everything that's going on. I think it's their ability to traverse consciousness, and this is how they find us, through consciousness. So they know how all that works, how energy works, how consciousness works, and how to move through it, and visit you in your dreams, and it's not a dream, right? So
Right.
yeah, the whole spiritual side. And I still make bad choices. I have too much of this. I should cut back on that. I know that probably dulls my senses a bit. It's been a hell of a ride, and it's been difficult, very challenging. The biggest part is dealing with other humans. That's been the most challenging. The Sasquatch part, no problem. I can take that all day long. It's the humans, man. So
I do understand. I know that you've been a very controversial person in the field of Bigfoot research. Big quotes there, but and I've heard a lot of people say a lot of things, especially about the audio. And, you they've gifted you with the audio and some of the visual stuff, like the gifs and footprints and all that. For me, for some reason, I can take pictures of these things, and I'm not talking about pareidolia or some fuzzy stuff. And and I'm not just saying that. So those who follow me know, I there's some pretty impressive pictures of. I've filmed this stuff on my front porch, in my neighbor's yard and stuff like that. So they seem to. I think I realized once they knew that you knew the game was on, and I think it is part of how far are you willing to go with them. So when I bring this up about like you confronting your fears and out there in the woods, I mean, hey, listen, these voices. I heard it once. I reacted wrong. I'll admit, but I know if I'm going to have to go through this process for whatever that reason is, I can't even figure out what that is, except that I must, for whatever reason. My biggest fear is having the conversations you have. You know what I mean? Now, I know a lot of people think that that's just you faking it and all that kind of stuff is too human sounding and all that. But I've heard that. By the way, I've heard the same thing because we have the same name. So, right. So,
a lot of people have heard.
Right in my front porch. And I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do this and do this the way that the spirits are telling me to do it, are you telling me I'm going to go there and I'm going to have to listen to this stuff? And how do I prepare myself from doing it? And I'm listening to your stuff, but it's still, you know what I mean? It's not, as well as anybody that listen to stuff on the computer is not the same thing as when it's happening in real time in front of your face.
Well, you can tell, like that audio piece you played at the beginning. It was all choppy. I hope it's not like that on the playback. I don't know if everybody else heard it clear, but because it was stalling, right? Just whatever. That piece.
We definitely can play it again as well.
You hear my reaction. Anybody that can't hear the authenticity in that, you're just completely disconnected from yourself. Your observation skills suck, right? And I see a lot of people in this subject like that. Every one of them who says that's fake or whatever. I say, well, your observation skills suck. Listen to the lung capacity. Listen to the inhale, exhale on the lungs there with velocity. That's easy to do. Anybody, okay, well, do it. Nobody's done it in 10 years so far, and there's a lot of people that would love to take me down, knock me down. I think a lot of it has more to do with human ego than their disbelief of it. It's just, there's something else going on there, right? Because a lot of people have heard them vocalize, and they're very similar. In fact, I just put a comparison video on of these campers. This was posted on Steve Isdale's channel. I borrowed that video to use as a comparison to show the vocals in comparison to Neff. So this is two different countries, USA and Canada, two different Sasquatch. The other one sounds basically the same as Neff, a young male, boisterous antics, same thing. Some people, he could easily be mistaken for Neff, and it's not Neff. It's, a completely different one, similar sounding, and I even put that up, like showing these two. It's like, listen to that. They almost sound the same, and it's fake. It's just like it boggles my mind how people attack with the fake and the hoax accusations. I think, like I said, I think it's just all human ego, really, that's getting in the way of that, right? They don't. There's so many people, they want a podium spot. They want to be the one who discovered Sasquatch, right? And I laugh, because this is not a discovery. This is a reveal, and I've said this over and over and over. This is more of a cover up than a discovery. It's they play out this narrative, put on these stupid television shows to keep this. While they can't stop us from learning of their existence, they can manipulate to keep us thinking a certain way of what they are. And they touch into the, here and there. They've been doing that a little more lately, touching into the spiritual side. But for the most part, they just ignore that. And it's going to change. It is changing, right? But there's a lot of egos involved. So that comes with that comes with a lot of finger pointing. And I've gone through it all. Still do.
Yes, you have. By the way, not to be disrespectful, and I am paying attention, but I noticed this Marshall stack. Where do you play?
I play guitar. Been at it for a long time. I got a few buddies in the city. We got a rehearsal space there.
So my son, I just got him. I played bass for 30 years or something. I can't play anymore because of the MS, but he's playing, and he's been banging on it while we were talking. So, and it's like, yeah, man, it's the way it goes, man.
we actually we have this rehearsal space. So my drummer I've known for 40 years, bass player I've known for, I don't even know, 20, maybe 25 years, vocalist, same thing, probably 30 years. So we've all known each other a long time, right? So we have a rehearsal place down in the Toronto area, and we have had activity happen in the room. So there's been orb activity there. The smells have appeared. One time we were all standing there between tunes, and we're standing in a circle, just having a drink and a talk, having a discussion, and suddenly a 10-cent piece appeared right in the middle of us, about maybe 4 or 5 feet off the ground. And we all saw it, and it just dropped to the ground right out of thin air. And I just reached down, I scooped it up while it was still bouncing. I was so fast at it, and everybody's like, whoa. There's been numerous incidents in the room. I remember one time I sometimes come out with a riff, so I'll throw on an audio recorder just to capture it quick before I lose it, right? So I remember one time I threw on my little audio recorder to record a jam we were going to do, and the guys weren't ready yet. I had pressed record, they weren't ready yet, so I stopped it. So that was it was a 6-second file, and when I played it back, there's a Sasquatch grunt on it, clear as day. It's like, just it's like, whoa, that's not any of us, right? So we've had quite a few things happen in that room. Seems when we jam, sometimes we get some invisible audience happening there.
What does your bandmates think about all this?
Well, they're fine. They're fine with it. Yeah.
What kind of what's the genre of music you guys do?
Yeah, hard rock, blues based hard rock.
Cool.
Like, I grew up on whatever, Black Sabbath, Zeppelin, all that stuff way back. That was what I grew up on, right? So, but more very riff oriented, obscure stuff I'm into.
I'm trying to be dad, so it's right there, buddy. Okay, here, come. Hey, get in there. Say hi once again. All right.
Hey, how are you, bud?
I'm doing good. How about you?
You hear what he said? He said he's doing good. How about you?
Oh
So,
yeah, all good, all good
okay.
for the most part.
So, yeah, that's the way it goes tonight. It's Valentine's and his mom's with her, I'm being dad, man. That's what I got to do, man. At times you got to do. So, and I'm happy to be dad. So, I really am. It's a blessing. So, there's some going back to this whole thing about the sounds, the I'm trying to think of how to say this. So, it is. This is something that's very uniquely yours, um, seemingly, as far as the amount of communication, right? Verbal communication. And that's kind of be, and then if you see how abusive people are, how judgmental people are, and I had to learn the hard way through religion and everything else. And look in the mirror myself about who I am now, so or who I was and who I want to be now. And so I'm grateful for this chance to talk to you about this stuff because I do know how abusive people were towards you, and I don't think it's a joke. And I've heard the same yell, or I wouldn't even call it yell. It's same communication. It seems like a yell because it's so loud, right? And it's so out of the ordinary, right? It's like what? um, and I just, I mean, most people wouldn't have peace with that, right? Most people would say that. Yeah, well, I'm just be honest. You've already gone through it, so let's talk about it because you've gone through it 1,000 times. A lot of people are going to say this is demonic, right?
I get it all the time,
So how do
daily.
how do we? Yeah, I know. I can only imagine. I how do you address that? How do you deal with that? How do you like say, now listen, how could this possibly be demonic? I mean, or whatever. How do you address that? Say there's people in this room right now that think that what you're dealing with is something demonic.
Um, what? Just from a sound, because something talks very deep because of their lung capacity, and they don't sound like us. So you right away you judge it as demonic when you've never ever had an interaction with them on a personal basis, and I know you haven't because not you.
Right, right.
But there's so many people that judge it, and I say you don't have any experience with this. You've never experienced. You've never interacted with them on had any contact experience whatsoever. So how do you know anything? You just judge from your own fears, from your own conditioning. Where this is the way we are as humans. We are conditioned, and um, to just judge something just by the way it sounds, or some people, well, if they have these abilities, if they can go invisible, telepathic, this and that, well, hey, humans are telepathic. There's some yogis that have demonstrated higher abilities than the rest of us. So we all have this. I don't know if we all do, but I assume we all have this capability to tap into. I think it's all been shut off pretty much. Um, but just to judge something because it can do things that are outside of our norm of our human conditioning, how you judge that as negative when to me, especially with my experiences, they hold honesty in high regard. I trust them more than humans at this point. I trust them with my life, no problem. um,
Well, one thing
it's
that this has been de- demonstrable is the fact that you're still around.
Yeah, 15 years doing this.
So
Yeah,
there's
and
something to think about. Now, this is really something we can listen. We come from our background is in the Western civilization is heavily influenced by the Abrahamic faith, and the experts that come out of these theologians, these seminaries and these institutions, and as part of the mind control, have
yeah,
convinced us that all these things that you're going through are demonic, right? And this is an important thing to address, but address it honestly and respectfully. You know, not only towards you, but also because he's, it's part of his indoctrination. Big part of it is our own ignorance. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It is. It's just profound. So it's like watching someone like Mike and what he's doing. There's lessons to be learned here that are more than I think most people can sense or recognize. Because if Mike's experience is true, and he's still existing and still thriving and he's still doing his thing, then maybe we've been told half truths about this whole thing. From the people that's supposed to know better and are supposed to have been there for our best interest, maybe they're wrong. This is an important issue. To me, it is, especially someone was heavily involved in Christianity. And like I told you before the show, and anybody knows me, I've read, at one time I would have brutally judged Mike. And it is only because of my experiences and maturation and development and seeing actually how condemning and judgmental most Christians are. I can say that. I say I have a right to say that because, I demonstrated I was in the camp, in the group, okay, and I demonstrated my faithfulness to it, right? And now these things that I've experienced since, you can't tell me that I'm demon possessed if I'm having these things, if I'm following the same precepts and principles that Christianity told me to do. And so, and it's an important conversation, not just for me, Mike, but for all of us to have this conversation in an intelligent, honest way, reflective way, and not just go bam automatically. It's demonic, and it happened. It happens a lot, doesn't it?
We're bred to fear. We're manipulated to fear. It's just fear, fear, fear. Anything outside the norm, fear. And this is the first mistake that people do, is approach this with fear. Like I said, I went into it with an open mind. I had fear, and that's normal. Of course, I would think anybody would, but to
Well,
just
what made you different, Mike, from everyone else? I mean, this is important. This might be the most important part of your story, actually, in the end of the day, or at least one of the most important parts. Your ability to go in, facing your fears and being as minimal as judgmentalness as possible to have these encounters. There's got to be a connection to all this. Does that make sense? Did I do a good job of bringing that out?
I remember the time that that very first time that I described when I went in my tent. The other time that Dwayne and his dad were not there when that happened. His dad had basically given me allowed me to come and go as I wanted on that property. Not use the cottage, just so there was a time when I had set up the tent. Actually, no, I think this was the first time. Sorry. And I had set my tent up, and it wasn't even on their property. I didn't know. I was further down, so I was on somebody else's property in the woods, right? I'd set up, and Dwayne and his dad were there at the cottage that night, and I'd left, I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'd walked down the road. I had this tiny little, like smaller than this little LED flashlight here, so it barely penetrates into the woods. And I went to veer off into the woods roughly where my tent was. And as soon as I went to step into the woods, there was a glowing orange eyeball staring at me, just one. So I think it was peeking out from behind a tree, but it had like a light turned on in its head. I'd never witnessed this in my life, right? I turned around, I walked back to the cottage. I just kind of, nervously laughed and went back to the cottage, and I told those guys, and I slept on the couch that night. And then they're kind of making fun of me. Oh, this, big tough Sasquatch researcher guy, which I never claimed to be. I just got the information and went and investigated, right? But that was the only time that happened. And after that, I put myself in that tent regardless of what, that only one time I chickened out at the start. So as far as growing up, I have never liked this system. I've always had an issue with it. My folks would always tell me I got a chip on my shoulder. I never liked school. I never liked authority. I never liked being told what to do. I've had an issue with that my entire existence. I think I'm just a strong, stubborn soul that can see through. Growing up, I couldn't see what was really going on, but I could sense that it was bullshit. That there was this control, this narrative, government, and just telling you what to do and controlling every aspect of your life. I've always had an issue with that, right? So at this point in my life now, I can see right through everything, and I'm even more so got a problem with it, right? But uh, I'm a free spirit, man. That's all. I'm a free spirit, and I just don't like being told what to do. And going into this subject, a lot of people have had an issue with that I didn't fall in line and do as they do. It's like, no, I'm making my own rules. I do what the hell I want. There's no rules here. I'm making my own, and that's what I've done the whole time. And they've tried to discredit me, like Scott Nelson. He's discrediting me in his videos, and it just, I don't want to get into the whole naming thing, but they
There's
have
an
all,
awful lot of names. Let's be honest. Like,
yeah, they've all tried to discredit me, right to the top, if you want to call it the top, but it's not, because that PhD is basically good for starting a campfire. That's about it when you get involved in this subject.
and let's think about the weaponization of anthropology and all the other sciences. This is a proven fact. You can look it up. There's papers have been done on it. So when you look at all these experts that are making people chase after a hairy ape, well, there was a reason for that. Yeah, right. With the weaponization of it and and redirecting people in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
What if there's some? And by the way, I relate to everything you're saying. I mean, I grew up as a hardcore punker. I was in the band. I couldn't. Although I went through college and all that. I hated every moment of it. I hated school. My son's right next to me as I'm saying this. So hurry up, son. Finish school early so you can have some freedom to think.
I want to go to college though.
Okay, you go to college. Though.
Sorry.
You're your own boy. I know, your own man, I should say. So, yeah. Hey, by the way, all you guys are joining, make sure to sub to my channel because they knocked me out last week, man. The old channel, man. They for speaking heresy, medical myths, and it's just ridiculous. So, we have a lot of things in common, Mike. Actually, a lot more that kind of that rebellious spirit, and I think it's important. Free spiritedness, but I think
yeah,
it's here's the other thing too, because they're going to find a lot of people in both camps, and they're going to tell you, oh, you got to think this way, you got to be all positive, or you got to, or it's you have to make sure that you have strapped up to the teeth with guns and weapons and everything. If you're going out in the woods, everyone's telling you how to do it right, and you had your experience. My experience has been, I didn't. For me, I didn't even. I'm having my experiences in town, like I'm telling you. I like it, and all around me. I mean, one of my encounters is 5 feet from where I'm sitting right now. 350 yards. There's a teepee structure right there, right. I mean,
I've had it all around me too. Yeah,
yeah. So you don't. My point is, there's nothing special about me at all. What my point is that this can happen anywhere at any
yeah,
time. You don't have to go follow the route of what Mike Patterson has done or Michael Adams has done. You just got to be willing to just do it. Regardless of your limitations, right? If you want to know greater truths of this world, you have to be willing to open up. You have to be willing to question your cherished worldviews. And you'll find, like I have at least, I put money on this, and my last pair of shoes, that you'll find that most of those cherished worldviews that you've that you hold on dearly and desperately as a life preserver to get through another day will be destroyed, and you will be okay. You will survive it. And you will be, and one of the things I discovered, Mike, I don't know how you feel about this, but you gotta have gone through this process with your journey. The experience of being the bubble, I'm going to call it the bubble of uncertainty. I'm just making it up as I go right now. But you think you understand. This the bubble of uncertainty on what you're dealing with, what's going on, facing not only the fears of being alone in the woods at night, having these things happen, but the uncertainty of or the system, the part of the destruction of your own personal worldview, the shattering of it, and how important that was, and how you came out of it. How do I ask you this? How was that for you? I know it sounds a little philosophical, but believe it or not, folks, this can lead to deeper things. You don't have to just stay focused on scary stories for the rest of your life. You can actually get into deeper things. Because how did that the process? And we talked a little bit about it, but that process about shattering your worldview, living that bubble of uncertainty, and how is that today for you?
Um, well, nothing was really shattered because I already kind of knew it already. I wasn't indoctrinated, although of course we're all conditioned to a certain degree. We're basically attacked from the moment we exit the womb. Um, but my view of this system and that it's only been confirmed really, and now I just have more experience and more knowledge and more wisdom, and um, I've made a lot of bad choices in my life. I should have done other certain things, you know, for better monetary, compensation. But whatever. Life is life. I don't have any real regrets that way, except I whenever I got to struggle like anybody else, like most people do. Um, I feel good in myself knowing that regardless of all the crap thrown at me, all the negativity, all the hate, I do get a lot of support too, a lot of support, and that's really grown a lot over the years, and I'm very grateful for that. Um, but all the other stuff, I feel good within myself because I know it's all real and I'm speaking the truth, and there's no lies. I've told the truth, and I tell people all the time, find me an inconsistency, find me a contradiction. In 10 years of interviews, videos, comments, everything, find me something, just one. Go ahead. You can't. Hey, I might have changed something down the road, realizing that like fingernail markings on a vehicle. It's like, oh no, sorry, I was wrong about that. That's actually dermal ridge lines. Something like that. That's not a big deal. But I feel good in myself knowing that I've been given a gift that I've chosen to share, that I know breaks this system eventually. In my lifetime, who knows? Maybe not. But regardless, I know that what I'm doing has definitely made a difference. I've seen this subject really change over the years. Um, so I feel pretty good about my choices as far as this whole journey.
Put your time out. My son, oh God, that's my son. Anyways, he's just a chip off the old block. Anyways, yeah. So, when it comes to this journey, it's, where do you expect to go from here? Where is this going to
Well,
take you?
I don't know. I've had this thought that I'm supposed to be teaching. So I think I actually have my first opportunity coming up. I don't want to say where, and I don't want to say when, but I've been asked to give a 2-hour lecture presentation. So that's coming up soon. I don't want to give any details on that because I don't know who's listening, and I get enough trouble, right? I'll say something after the fact for sure. I'll let that happen, and I hope that leads to more, because this is
Wait,
something that
have you thought about teaching when it comes to teaching? You know, because that's what you've been doing right now, and I think that have you thought about the importance of preparing people for the moment? Is that going to be part of it? I mean, does that make sense? I mean, because we've been talking about it, and going back to the dark night of the soul type of thing, this to prepare people to have the moment, the real moment, not the things like, how do we say this? Because you hear all these stuff about these quote unquote encounters or experiences, and times, and I've had really negative. I had like 3 days of severe spiritual warfare, but I also believe that shamans were and Satanists were involved with this, right? And what I mean by that is astral projecting and manipulating spirits, right? I do believe, from my own personal experience, that there are, just like everything else in this creation, there are good Sabai and there are evil Sabai, and everything in between. And they might differ from that, but that's my experience, right? To me, that makes a lot of sense logically in this dualistic world, right? They assume that everything is good just because from one, but that's my opinion. But regardless of that, preparing somebody for what we call encounter, which I would think a better way of seeing it is, when you talk about the contact, but maybe it's the what is a better way? It's like a family reunion, right? A meeting your cousin for the first time type of thing, right? As simplistic as that sounds, what do we call that? I would call that maybe the reunion, or is there a better way of saying that? But you know what I'm saying. This is that moment where it's like, bam, the world's going to change. You're never going to be the same. I'm sorry, no matter what anybody says. The moment you have that real moment, it's the beginning of. It's pretty much the beginning of the old you.
yeah.
How do you prepare people for that, or can we?
Well, hey, as you basically kind of just described it there, um, as far as teaching about this, um, I don't come across telling everybody that it's all unicorns and rainbows. My thought is, um, I don't know this. This is a speculation on my part, but my thought is they have a council and they are in the midst of a reveal. I was actually given a vision way back, years back, of them showing me, and saying, soon your people will know. And this is what's going on. I can see it happen. But my thought is that they have a council. They agreed to do as they're doing, but some of their people were completely against it because they hate humans, because of they know us. They know humans better than humans know humans. They see what goes on. They see the poisoning of the earth. They see how we treat each other. So they I'm sure some of them just despise us or hate us or whatever it is. I think for the most part, their people are good people. Um, I tend to think that the ones that don't are probably in more remote regions, and the ones that do are probably closer to humans, so they can teach their children. Um, the children are very excited. I know that. I had one of them brought to me, and in the dream state, and I got to hold her hand, and I felt all her emotions as they were my own, and I was even conscious in that state to give my hand a little shake. She was holding my hand, and I felt an explosion of her emotions just go right up through my body, through my arm, through my body, and I could feel exactly what she was feeling, and just it was absolutely mind blowing. But how they feel it at such a pure level. It's absolutely incredible. But the kids are really excited. So our future is contact with their people. So I believe that the ones that are closer to humans are, are good. And so, preparing people for encounter, or them coming into their existence. I think, I have the experience to talk and share and basically describe what we're dealing with to a certain degree anyways.
Right.
I've learned their behavior, how they interact with humans, how they show up in many ways, and it's general, throughout. It's everybody that I've dealt with that has this similar situation going on. It's all the same. They're all the same. So there is a similarity in all that. Um, but anyways, to get back to the teaching part, this is what I believe my future to be. So like I said, I have that first opportunity coming up, and I hope that leads to more. I really do. So.
Well, it should be very informative, to say the least.
This will be my first one. There's going to be, well, the up to about 275. Depends on how many show up, but it should be a fair size audience.
Right.
It'll be my first time speaking live, but I think I'll do fine with it. I'm very, very confident, in my experiences.
Right. Well, obviously that you got a lot of experience. I noticed you also are starting to do more videos again.
Well, I started that TikTok account just recently, right?
Right. That's how you and I met.
Just on a whim, it's like, yeah, what the hell? Let's make because to make a 1 minute, 2 minute video, that's nothing. I can do that in no time. I actually have another one I just put together today. I'll put it up after I'm done here, but they're nice and easy. And
so where do people go for on TikTok if they want you to find you on TikTok?
It's under Sasquatch Ontario.
Okay.
So
I mean, I'm just, I already am following you, so I already know that. But
I haven't done the live thing yet. I wasn't, because I know you need 1,000 subscribers, but I hit that last night, so I think I'm probably about 1,500 by now. So now I can go live on that, and I'm going to utilize that to get people to come to my YouTube channel and delve deeper into it. Right, those that have an interest. There's obviously a ton of knee-jerk freaking morons on there with their just constant fake hoax, this, that, just stupid comments. It's endless, right? But
well, how much of that is just pure ignorance? I mean, how many of them are just people that they're new to this whole thing and they don't believe it in the first place? And how many of there are actually people who have old hats, people who have already had encounters experience? How many of them? I wonder what the ratio of it is. Is it mostly just the ignorant, the
mostly
uninformed?
Yeah, it's TikTok, mostly ignorant. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's always a small percentage of those that have a true interest in it, and others that have had experiences that maybe run across that, and suddenly it's like, hey, and suddenly they're getting information fed to them that they never had any idea about before, right? So that's who I would like to cater to, those who are either searching for answers or that sort of thing. The ignorance, it's actually, I find that the whole TikTok thing a good tool to develop my even thicker skin.
Oh, that would definitely do.
Yeah. So I'm hitting block a lot, a lot. So.
Well, this has been a good time. Probably, I feel it. That it was probably time to end this round. I hope we do this again. There's many more questions, and I hope I didn't throw you off too much with my questions, and
Oh no, not at all.
I hope there were some good ones.
Yeah, it's all good.
Because it's something that um, a bit selfish this round, thinking about me and
Yeah, it's all good.
sometime this year, maybe just doing it on my own for once. It's like I've said to numerous people, you'll find yourself um, who you really are. Just spend a few hours in the woods alone with no light and anything, but I haven't done the whole like from dusk to dawn thing somewhere isolated and just me and the elements and that which is around us, whether it's the spiritual realm or Sasquatch or whatever shows up, you know what I mean? And
My,
just
my my biggest fear is bears. I don't want to come face to face with a bear. Like I had one sniff my tent wall one night. I think it was a bear. I didn't get a visual on it, but it was maybe a couple 100 feet away, dead still night. I'm by myself in my tent in my own little area, and it was, I could tell it was fairly large, and it was breaking logs and stuff and making all kinds of noise, and then it went dead still. I'm in my tent and I'm like, okay, where is it? What's it doing? Nothing, 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 nothing. Suddenly it starts up, beelines right for my tent. But I knew I had Sasquatch presence at the same time. So I don't know if I was being messed with or if that bear just beelined right for my tent. And I didn't move until I heard a sniff right there at my head, something sniffing, and that's when I made a move, and it, did one of those, and then was gone. Right. Um, I had my audio running. I just didn't have my recorder right next to my tent. I
right.
I still captured the sound, just not as good as I could have. Um, and I don't know if that was. Anyways, that's basically my biggest fear is running into bears. The rest of it I'm okay with, except one time. Did run into a pack of wolves with a partner I had, and that was very frightening. So you know, wolves and
Yeah.
bears, wolves and
Well,
bears. I'm good with Sasquatch, no problem.
well, down where I'm at, it's just people. I don't think we're going to run across any wolves. Although there's some pretty vicious coyotes down here, but that's about it. So should be interesting. I don't
Yeah,
know
if I come across a pack of coyotes, you know, probably go up a tree. Would be the best bet.
how. These good old coyotes. So hey, man, it was really good. So first of all, once again, everyone who hasn't, which I have a hard time believing, but you haven't subscribed to Mike's channel. I hope that we do this again, and I appreciate you looking past the small numbers as far as subs and all that, and understanding what I've gone through.
Oh, I didn't even look, Michael. I didn't even look. I don't know, man. It
Well,
doesn't
that even
didn't
says
matter.
more about you as a human being. So, and trusted and the what Jared said, and trusted in me to have this conversation. I hope we have more than one. I am doing a
Sure.
series right now with MK Davis, and because me and MK were pretty close, and we did it. Like I said, he was part of the beginning of my journey.
I've never talked to MK. I like him. He's been one that I've never heard has said anything negative about me. So I still got respect for that guy.
Well,
I've
I
uh,
talked to him about this series that we're doing. I said, listen, what if we bring other people along and have this conversation? Yeah, that's what I did before last time too. I'd introduce people that never met them before, right? Would you be willing to join us?
oh yeah, yeah, no problem. Yeah.
So, but you work during the day? Is that the gig?
Right now I'm not. No, I've had a shoulder injury for quite some time.
Okay.
So
So when I get a
I'm
hold
still
of,
pretty busy.
if you're going to be around next week, when I find, well, I will send you a message to see if you can join us.
All
Would
right,
you want
sure.
to? Yeah, that'd be good. I think that'd be a very interesting and very informative conversation. I'll just be the moderator, and you guys will just tear it up.
Yeah, I know he's got some interesting audio as well. The shed talker stuff, all
Yeah, and you guys, you brought that up in that. Was it the question and answers? I think that's what it was. The one you had last month. So yeah, so I've enjoyed this. I want to do more of it, but I'm dad and I'm pushing my luck with my son. You know what I mean?
All good.
I wasn't supposed to have him today, but I'm glad I had to have him. I get him again tomorrow, and I have a few more days this week. So, thank you. So once again, Mike over there on the Sasquatch in Ontario, he also has the website Sasquatch Ontario
.com.
Is it or CA?
No, .com. If anybody wants to get hold of me, Sasquatch Ontario at yahoo.ca for
Okay,
Canada.
that's what it is. Okay, I just
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
get that
Yahoo.
right.
Yahoo.ca.
The information will be obviously in the information box. You have a great day, brother. I'm glad I finally got to meet you. I'm
You too,
glad I'm
Michael.
a different person today than I was 6 years ago. If I'd have met you, you probably never want to talk to me. But now
Hey,
we're more in line. We're more in line now today. I grew up a little bit at a few things, so we have a better. I thought we had a good conversation.
yeah,
I appreciate it.
that was
You
good,
know,
man.
and we will make a part two. Next two will be with MK, hopefully.
All right.
So, all right, folks, thank you. Those are there and those that will hear us. Don't forget to remind everybody there's a new channel, those that are around. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.